My name is Claire Mitchell, and I am 28 years old. I teach art to middle schoolers in Austin, Texas, spend my weekends painting in my tiny studio apartment, and until last Saturday, I believed that family meant showing up for each other no matter what. I believed that blood was thicker than water, that sisters supported each other through life's biggest moments, and that even when relationships were complicated, love would always find a way to bridge the gaps. I was wrong about all of that. The baby shower invitation never came. Not through the mail, not through text, not through our mother who usually served as the family messenger when my sister Natalie and I were not speaking directly. But I saw the Instagram posts, the beautiful pink and gold decorations being delivered to her pristine suburban home, the carefully arranged gift table, the professional photographer she had hired to capture every perfect moment. Natalie, my 25-year-old sister, was having a baby shower for her first child, and apparently, I was not invited. At first, I convinced myself it was an oversight. Natalie had always been scatterbrained about details, and planning a baby shower while 7 months pregnant was probably overwhelming. She had probably just forgotten to send my invitation, or assumed Mom had invited me. It happened all the time in our family. Miscommunications, assumptions, things falling through the cracks. So I bought a gift. A beautiful handmade baby quilt from a local artisan that cost me $300 I could not really afford on a teacher's salary. I wrapped it in expensive paper and tied it with a silk ribbon, making sure it looked worthy of Natalie's Pinterest perfect aesthetic. I put on my best dress, a navy blue wrap dress I had bought for parent-teacher conferences, and drove the 30 minutes from my apartment in East Austin to Natalie's house in Cedar Park, the kind of planned community where every house looked like it had been ordered from the same catalog, and every lawn was maintained by professional landscapers. The driveway was full of cars, BMWs and Mercedes and Range Rovers, the kind of vehicles driven by the wives of lawyers and doctors and tech executives who made up Natalie's social circle. I parked my 10-year-old Honda Civic behind a pristine white Lexus and checked my reflection in the rearview mirror one more time. I looked fine. Not as polished as Natalie's country club friends, but respectable, professional, like someone who belonged at a baby shower for her own sister. The front door was decorated with a wreath of pink and white flowers, and I could hear laughter and conversation coming from the backyard. I rang the doorbell, holding the beautifully wrapped gift, and smiling in anticipation of surprising my sister. Natalie answered the door herself. She was glowing the way pregnant women are supposed to glow, wearing a flowing pink dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent, her blonde hair perfectly styled in loose curls. She looked like she had stepped out of a maternity magazine. When she saw me, her smile disappeared. "Claire, what are you doing here?" "I am here for your baby shower," I said, holding up the gift. "I brought something for little Emma." Natalie glanced back toward the house, where I could see women in designer dresses holding champagne glasses and laughing over what looked like an elaborate spread of catered food. "Claire, you were not actually invited." The words hit me like cold water. I stood on her front porch, holding a $300 gift, wearing my best dress, and stared at my sister as she told me I was not welcome at her baby shower. "What do you mean I was not invited?" "You are my sister. I mean I did not invite you. This is a private event for my close friends and family." "I am family. You are. But Claire, you have to understand. This is a really important day for me. I have been planning this for months, and I need everything to be perfect." "And my being here would make it not perfect?" Natalie sighed, the same exasperated sound she had been making at me since we were children, whenever I failed to understand something that seemed obvious to her. "Claire, you know how you get at family events. You always find a way to make everything about you. How do I make everything about me? You just do. You get dramatic, or you say something inappropriate, or you dress weird, or you bring up your art stuff when no one wants to hear about it." Each word felt like a small knife. Dramatic, inappropriate, weird. These were the words my family had been using to describe me for as long as I could remember, the reasons why I was always the odd one out, the one who did not quite fit. "Natalie, I have never ruined any of your events." "What about my engagement party? What about it? You showed up wearing that ridiculous vintage dress and spent the entire night talking to Marcus about some museum exhibit instead of socializing with our friends." The ridiculous vintage dress had been a beautiful 1950s cocktail dress I had found at an estate sale and had been so excited to wear. Marcus, her fiancé now husband, had asked me about my work, and we had had an interesting conversation about art and culture. I had thought it was a pleasant evening. I was making conversation with your fiancé. I thought that was socializing. You were monopolizing him, and you looked like you were trying too hard to be different. I was being myself. That is the problem, Claire. You are always so aggressively yourself, and it makes other people uncomfortable. Aggressively yourself, as if authenticity were a weapon I wielded against innocent bystanders. So you decided not to invite me to your baby shower because I might be myself? I decided not to invite you because I wanted this to be a peaceful, elegant celebration. I did not want to worry about what you might say or do or wear. Behind her, I could see women drifting toward the front door, curious about what was happening. I recognized some faces from previous family gatherings. Natalie's college roommate Jessica, our cousin Madison, several women from her neighborhood whose names I had never learned. Claire? Our mother appeared behind Natalie, looking uncomfortable. What are you doing here, honey? I came to the baby shower. I thought I was invited. Oh, sweetheart. Mom's expression was pained in the way it always was when family conflicts bubbled to the surface. Natalie wanted to keep this small. Small? There must be 30 people here. Close friends and family, Natalie repeated. I am family. You are family. But Claire, you have to understand that not every family event has to include everyone. Which family events do I get included in? Natalie and Mom exchanged a look, one of those silent communications that excluded me as effectively as words. The important ones, Mom said finally. And this is not important? This is important to me, Natalie said, which is why I wanted it to be perfect. Which is why I invited people who understand how to behave at these kinds of events. And I do not understand how to behave. Claire, honestly, no, you do not. You never have. The gift felt heavy in my hands, a physical reminder of how naive I had been to think that showing up with a thoughtful present and good intentions would be enough to earn my place at my own sister's celebration. What exactly am I going to do that is so terrible? Compliment the decorations? Eat the food? Talk to the other guests? You are going to find some way to draw attention to yourself. You always do. How? I do not know. Maybe you will talk about how you cannot afford to have kids because teaching does not pay enough. Maybe you will mention that you think baby showers are materialistic. Maybe you will show up wearing something weird and spend the whole time looking like you do not want to be here. I do want to be here. I want to celebrate my niece. You want to be here because you think you are supposed to be here. But Claire, you do not actually fit in with my friends. You never have. Your friends? My life, Claire. You do not fit in with my life. The words hung between us like a door slamming shut. Behind Natalie, I could see the other guests pretending not to listen, while obviously straining to hear every word of this conversation. So what am I supposed to do with this? I asked, holding up the gift. You can leave it if you want, or take it back to the store. I did not buy it at a store. I bought it from an artist. Of course you did. What is that supposed to mean? It means you always have to make everything more complicated than it needs to be. A normal person would buy something from the registry at Target or Pottery Barn Kids, but you have to find some artisan and spend money you do not have on something that is probably weird and impractical. It is a baby quilt. How is a baby quilt weird and impractical? Because knowing you, it is probably made from organic hemp, or painted with natural dyes, or has some kind of political message woven into it. It is just a quilt, Natalie. A beautiful, handmade quilt for your daughter. Claire, I do not want your guilt quilt. It is not a guilt quilt. It is a gift from someone who loves you and wants to celebrate your baby. If you loved me, you would respect my wishes and leave. If you loved me, you would not have excluded me in the first place. Mom stepped forward, clearly desperate to defuse the situation before it escalated further. Girls, please, this does not have to be a big fight. Claire, honey, why do not you come inside for just a few minutes? Say hello to everyone, and then maybe head home. We can celebrate the baby another time, just family. She can say hello, Natalie said quickly, but she cannot stay for the shower. Why not? Because I do not want her here. The honesty of it was brutal, not because of logistics or timing or space constraints, because my sister simply did not want me at her baby shower. Natalie, that is enough, Mom said sharply. No, Mom, it is not enough. I am tired of pretending that Claire fits into our family when she obviously does not want to. She spends all her time acting like she is too good for us, like our values are shallow and our choices are boring. She looks down on me for marrying Marcus and buying a house in the suburbs and wanting a normal life. I have never looked down on you. You have never said you were proud of me either. I have never had the chance. You never tell me anything about your life. You never ask my opinion or invite me to be part of anything important. Because you always find something to criticize. When I got engaged, you asked if I was sure I was ready for marriage. When I bought the house, you made some comment about suburban sprawl. When I quit my job to focus on the baby, you asked if I was worried about being financially dependent on Marcus. I was asking questions because I care about you. You were judging me because my choices are not as enlightened as yours. That is not true. Is it not? Claire, you act like being an artist makes you more sensitive and thoughtful than the rest of us. Like teaching middle school art is somehow more meaningful than having a family and building a life. I never said that. You do not have to say it. It is in every look you give me when I talk about decorating the nursery or planning playdates or wanting to be a stay-at-home mom. You think I am wasting my potential. I think you are living your life the way you want to live it. And I think you are living your life in a way that makes it impossible for you to be part of mine. What does that mean? It means you have chosen to be different, Claire. You have chosen to be the artist, the free spirit, the one who does not care about material things or social conventions. And that is fine. But it also means you do not get to be surprised when you do not fit in at events that are about material things and social conventions. Like baby showers. Like dinner parties. Like family gatherings where people want to talk about normal things like jobs and houses and children, instead of art and creativity and whatever cause you are passionate about this month. So I have to choose between being myself and being part of this family? You have to choose between being aggressively yourself and being considerate of other people's comfort. There it was again. Aggressively yourself. As if my personality were a form of violence against innocent suburbanites. Natalie, I work with children all day. I know how to be considerate of other people. You know how to be considerate of children. Adults are different. How? Adults do not want to hear about your latest painting, or your thoughts on the education system, or your opinions about consumer culture. They want to make small talk about the weather and their kids and their vacation plans. And you think I am incapable of making small talk. I think you are incapable of making small talk without finding a way to turn it into a lecture about something you care about. That is called having a conversation. That is called being exhausting. The word hit me harder than anything else she had said. Exhausting. That was how my sister saw me. Not difficult, or challenging, or even annoying, but exhausting. Like spending time with me required more energy than she was willing to expend. I had no idea you felt that way about me. I do not feel that way about you. I feel that way about being around you in social situations. What is the difference? The difference is that I love you as my sister, but I do not enjoy your company at parties. And baby showers are parties. Baby showers are celebrations. And I wanted to celebrate with people who would be happy for me without making me feel like I need to defend my choices. I would have been happy for you. Would you? Or would you have found some way to make it about how commercial baby showers are, or how expensive everything is, or how materialistic it all seems? I would have been happy for you because you are my sister, and you are having a baby. I do not believe that. Why not? Because you have never been happy for me about anything, Claire. Not when I got engaged, not when I got married, not when I bought the house, not when I got pregnant. You have always found something to question or criticize or worry about. I was being protective. You were being judgmental. I was trying to make sure you were making decisions for the right reasons. The right reasons according to you. The right reasons according to anyone who cares about you. Claire, you do not get to decide what the right reasons are for my life. You do not get to question my choices just because they are different from the choices you would make. I have never questioned your choices. I have asked questions about your choices. There is a difference. Is there? Because it feels the same from my end. We stood there on her front porch, surrounded by pink decorations and the sound of laughter from her backyard, and I realized that this conversation was not really about the baby shower. It was about 28 years of misunderstanding each other, of speaking different languages, of wanting different things from life, and never quite figuring out how to bridge that gap. What do you want from me, Natalie? I want you to understand that your way of living is not the only valid way of living. I want you to stop acting like my choices are somehow less thoughtful or meaningful than yours, just because they are more conventional. I have never acted like that. You have always acted like that. Ever since we were kids, you have acted like being different makes you special, and being normal makes me boring. That is not true. It is true, Claire, and I am tired of feeling like I have to apologize for wanting a normal life. You do not have to apologize for anything. Then why do I always feel like I do when I'm around you? I did not know how to answer that question. I had never realized that my presence made Natalie feel defensive about her choices. I had thought I was being supportive in my own way, asking questions because I cared, offering different perspectives because I wanted her to be happy. But apparently, my version of support felt like judgment to her. My version of caring felt like criticism. I do not know, I said finally. I do. It is because you look at my life and see everything you do not want for yourself. The suburban house, the lawyer husband, the baby shower with matching decorations. And that is fine, but it makes it really hard for me to enjoy those things when you are around. I do not look down on your life. Maybe you do not mean to. But Claire, you have spent our entire adulthood making choices that are specifically designed to be different from mine. You became an artist. I became an accountant. You moved to East Austin. I moved to the suburbs. You stayed single. I got married. You focused on your career. I am starting a family. So it feels like you are trying to prove something. Like you are trying to show everyone that there is a better way to live than the way I am living. I am just living my life. And I am just living mine. But somehow, when we are in the same room, it feels like we are in competition for who made the better choices. I do not feel like we are in competition. That is because you think you are winning. The accusation stung because there might have been some truth to it. I had always prided myself on being independent, creative, unconventional. I had chosen a path that felt authentic to me, but maybe I had also chosen it partly because it was different from the path Natalie had chosen. I do not think I am winning anything. Do you not? Claire, you live in the cool part of town. You have an interesting job. You get to travel and paint and do whatever you want with your time. Meanwhile, I am married to a lawyer, living in suburbia, about to become a stay-at-home mom. Which one of us sounds more interesting? Interesting is not the same as better. Is it not? Because that is how it feels when you ask me if I am sure I am ready for marriage, or if I am worried about being financially dependent, or if I think I will miss working. Those are valid questions. They are questions that suggest you think I am making a mistake. They are questions that suggest I want you to be happy. And you do not think I can be happy living the life I have chosen. I think you can be happy living any life you choose. But I want to make sure you are choosing it for the right reasons. There you go again. The right reasons. According to you. We were going in circles, having the same argument we had been having in different forms for years. The argument about whose way of living was more valid, more thoughtful, more authentic. The argument about whether unconventional choices were inherently superior to conventional ones, or whether questioning conventional choices was inherently judgmental. Natalie, I love you. I want to be part of your life. I want to celebrate your baby. Then you should have thought about that before you spent years making me feel like my life was not worth celebrating. I have never made you feel that way. You have always made me feel that way. How? By asking questions instead of offering congratulations. By looking concerned when I tell you good news. By acting like every major decision I make is something I need to justify to you. I ask questions because I care about you. You ask questions because you do not trust me to know what is best for myself. That is not true. It is true, Claire, and it is exhausting. And today, at my baby shower, I did not want to be exhausted. I wanted to be celebrated. I came here to celebrate you. You came here because you thought you were supposed to be here. But honestly, can you tell me that you were looking forward to spending the afternoon making small talk with my friends about baby clothes and nursery themes? I opened my mouth to say yes. Of course I was looking forward to it, but the words would not come. Because she was right. I had been dreading the small talk. I had been preparing myself to smile and nod while women I barely knew discussed the merits of different diaper brands and shared birth stories I did not want to hear. I was looking forward to celebrating you and Emma, but not to celebrating with my friends. I do not know your friends, and you have never made any effort to get to know them. When would I have had the chance? At my engagement party, at my wedding, at the housewarming, at every family gathering where they have been present, and you have spent the entire time talking to Marcus or Dad or anyone except the women who are important to me. I talk to whoever seems interested in talking to me. You talk to whoever shares your interests. Which is fine, but it means you never get to know the people who are important to me, but do not happen to care about art or education or whatever else you want to discuss. So you think I am a snob. I think you are selective about who you consider worth getting to know. And you think your friends would not consider me worth getting to know. I think my friends would find you intimidating and judgmental, and I did not want to deal with that today. Intimidating and judgmental. 2 more words to add to the list of how my family saw me. So this is not about the baby shower. This is about you being embarrassed of me. This is about me wanting one day where I do not have to manage everyone else's feelings about each other. What does that mean? It means that when you come to my events, I spend the entire time worrying about whether you are having a good time, whether my friends are making you feel welcome, whether you approve of the food or the decorations or the conversation, and I did not want to worry about any of that today. You do not have to worry about me. I always worry about you, Claire, because you are always slightly unhappy at my events and everyone can tell. I am not unhappy. You look unhappy. You look like you would rather be anywhere else. Maybe because I can tell that you wish I were anywhere else. Maybe because you wish you were anywhere else. We stared at each other, both of us finally acknowledging the fundamental truth that had been lurking beneath every family gathering for years. We did not enjoy each other's company in social situations. We loved each other as sisters, but we did not like each other as people. So what happens now? I asked. Now you go home, and I finish my baby shower with the people who actually want to be here. And what about Emma? What about being her aunt? You can be her aunt, but you cannot expect to be included in every celebration just because you are family. Which celebrations do I get included in? The ones where your presence would add to the experience instead of detracting from it. And you get to decide which ones those are. I get to decide which events I host, yes. The gift was still heavy in my hands, a symbol of everything I had gotten wrong about this relationship. I had thought that showing up was enough, that good intentions and blood relation would guarantee me a place at my sister's table. But apparently, belonging required more than just being related. It required being wanted. I should go. Yeah, you should. And I held out the gift, not sure what to do with it. Keep it, Natalie said. Give it to her when she is older, when she can appreciate that her aunt spent too much money on something impractical because she does not understand how normal people shop for babies. It is not impractical. It is a quilt. It is a $300 quilt, Claire. That is impractical. How do you know how much it cost? Because I know you. You always spend too much money on gifts because you think expensive means thoughtful. I thought handmade meant thoughtful. Handmade means you want credit for finding something unique instead of just buying something useful. I wanted to give Emma something special. Emma is 3 months away from being born. She does not need something special. She needs diapers and onesies and bottles, practical things that her parents actually need. I can buy practical things too, but you will not, because practical is not your brand. My brand. Being different, Claire. Being the sister who does not do things the normal way. Maybe I am different because normal has never felt like an option for me. Maybe normal has never felt like an option because you have never tried it. Maybe I have never tried it because no one in this family has ever made me feel like normal was something I could achieve. Normal is not something you achieve, Claire. Normal is something you choose. And you think I have chosen to be difficult. I think you have chosen to be yourself. And unfortunately, yourself is difficult. The words hung between us, final and cruel. Yourself is difficult. Not your behavior, not your choices, but your fundamental self was the problem. Thank you for clarifying that. Claire, I do not mean it as an insult. How else could you possibly mean it? I mean that you are complicated. You have strong opinions and specific tastes and high standards. And that is fine, but it makes you hard to be around sometimes. Especially at baby showers. Especially at events where people want to relax and have fun without thinking too hard about anything. And I make people think too hard. You make people feel like they should be thinking harder than they want to. By existing, by being yourself. There it was again. The crime of being myself. Of taking up space in a way that made other people uncomfortable. I understand. Do you? I understand that you do not want me here. I understand that my presence makes your life more difficult. I understand that you would prefer to celebrate your daughter with people who do not challenge anyone to think about anything. That is not fair. Is it not? Because it sounds like a pretty accurate summary of what you just told me. I told you that I wanted one day to celebrate without having to manage complicated family dynamics. And I am the complicated family dynamic. Today, yes. And probably at Emma's first birthday party. I do not know. Maybe. And her school events and family holidays and any other celebration you host for the rest of her life. Claire, you are being dramatic. Am I? Or am I just understanding the logical conclusion of what you are telling me? I am telling you that today is not about you, and I am telling you that I never thought it was. Then why are you making it about you? I am not making it about me. You made it about me when you told me I was not invited to my own niece's baby shower. She is not your niece yet. She will be in 3 months. And in 3 months, we can figure out what your relationship with her looks like. What does that mean? It means that being an aunt is not automatic just because you are my sister. The words felt like a door slamming shut on the future I had imagined. I had been looking forward to being Aunt Claire, the creative one who would teach Emma to paint and take her to museums and show her that there were many different ways to live a meaningful life. But apparently, even that relationship would be conditional on my ability to behave in ways that Natalie found acceptable. I see. Claire, I am not trying to hurt you. You are succeeding anyway. I am trying to set boundaries. You are trying to control who I am. I am trying to protect my family from unnecessary stress. And I am unnecessary stress. Your need to be the center of attention is unnecessary stress. When have I ever tried to be the center of attention? Right now. By making my baby shower about your feelings instead of about celebrating Emma. I came here to celebrate Emma. You came here to make sure you were not being excluded. And I was being excluded. And now you know why. I looked at my sister, beautiful and glowing, and surrounded by the trappings of the perfect life she had built. And I realized that this conversation was not going to end with understanding or reconciliation. It was going to end with me walking away from the family that had never quite known what to do with me. I hope you have a wonderful shower, Natalie. Thank you. I hope Emma is healthy and happy. She will be. And I hope someday you realize that having a difficult sister is not the worst thing that can happen to a family. Claire. But I was already walking back to my car, carrying the $300 quilt that my niece would apparently never receive, wearing the dress I had chosen to celebrate a sister who did not want me there. As I drove away from the house with the perfect lawn and the pink decorations, I could see the party continuing in the backyard. Women laughing, opening gifts, taking pictures with Natalie and her perfectly round belly. Everything proceeding exactly as planned, now that the difficult sister had been successfully excluded. For the first time in my life, I understood that I would never belong in my sister's world, not because I was not trying hard enough, but because the very qualities that made me who I was were incompatible with the life she had chosen to build. I was too much myself for her taste, and apparently, that was a problem I would never be able to solve. I drove home in a daze, the expensive baby quilt sitting in my passenger seat like evidence of my own naivety. When I reached my apartment, I sat in my car for 20 minutes, staring at the colorful murals on the building across the street, trying to process what had just happened. My sister did not want me at her baby shower because I was exhausting, because I was aggressively myself, because my presence made her friends uncomfortable and forced her to manage everyone's feelings. For 28 years, I had been trying to figure out why I never quite fit into my family. Now I knew. It was not that I was doing anything wrong. It was that who I was as a person was fundamentally incompatible with who they needed me to be. My phone started buzzing with texts almost immediately. Mom, trying to smooth things over. Dad, asking what had happened. My younger brother Jake, who had apparently heard about the drama from someone at the party. I ignored them all and went inside, where I set the quilt on my kitchen table and stared at it. $300, a week and a half of groceries, 2 months of my car payment. Money I had spent because I wanted to give my future niece something beautiful and meaningful. But apparently, meaningful was not what Natalie wanted. She wanted practical. She wanted normal. She wanted me to be someone I had never been and would never be. That evening, I called my best friend Maria, who lived in Portland and had known me since college. "How did the baby shower go?" she asked. "Terribly. I was not actually invited." "What do you mean you were not invited? She is your sister." I told her the whole story, from showing up with the expensive gift, to the conversation on the front porch, to driving home with the quilt that Emma would never receive. Jesus, Claire. I am so sorry. The worst part is that she was not wrong about some of it. I do not enjoy making small talk about baby clothes. I would have been uncomfortable at that party. So what? You still should have been invited. Should I have? Maybe Natalie knows me better than I know myself. Maybe I would have found some way to make it about me, or said something inappropriate, or looked like I did not want to be there. Claire, stop. You are not responsible for other people's discomfort with your personality. Am I not? Because apparently, I have been making my sister uncomfortable for years without realizing it. That is her problem, not yours. Is it? Maria, what if I am actually difficult? What if I am judgmental and pretentious and exhausting, and everyone has just been too polite to tell me? You are none of those things. How do you know? Because I have known you for 8 years. Because you are one of the most thoughtful, generous people I know. Because you care deeply about everything you do, and that is not a character flaw. Natalie thinks it is. Natalie thinks it is because it makes her feel bad about not caring as deeply as you do. She accused me of thinking I am better than her because of my choices. Are you better than her? The question caught me off guard. What do you mean? I mean, do you think your life is more meaningful than hers? Do you think being an artist makes you superior to someone who chooses conventional success? I considered the question honestly. I think my life is more meaningful to me. I do not know if it is objectively more meaningful. And do you think Natalie made her choices for the wrong reasons? I think she made her choices because they were expected of her. I do not know if that makes them wrong. But you wish she had made different choices. I wish she had made choices that made her happy. And you do not think she is happy. I do not know. She says she is, but she always seems so stressed about maintaining this perfect image. Maybe that stress is not about the image. Maybe it is about having a sister who questions everything she does. The possibility that I had been part of the problem hit me like cold water. What if Natalie was right? What if my questions and concerns and different perspective had made her feel like she needed to defend her choices constantly? I was trying to be supportive. I know you were. But Claire, sometimes support means celebrating people's choices even when you would not make the same choices yourself. I thought I was doing that. Were you? Or were you celebrating while also making it clear that you had reservations? I thought about all the conversations Maria was referencing. When Natalie got engaged, I had asked if she was sure she was ready. When she bought the house, I had made a comment about suburban sprawl. When she quit her job, I had asked about financial independence. I had thought I was being thoughtful, but maybe I had been communicating something else entirely. I think I might have been a terrible sister. You were not a terrible sister. You were a sister who loved differently than she needed to be loved. What does that mean? It means you showed love by asking questions and offering different perspectives because that is how you process the world. But she needed love to look like unqualified enthusiasm and support. And I never gave her that. Not in the way she could recognize. So what am I supposed to do now? You are supposed to decide whether you want to try to repair this relationship or whether you want to accept that some relationships cannot be repaired. How do I decide that? You think about whether you can love Natalie the way she needs to be loved without losing yourself in the process. After we hung up, I sat in my apartment surrounded by my paintings and my books, and all the evidence of the life I had built as an artist and a teacher. It was a good life, a meaningful life, a life that felt authentic to who I was, but it was also a lonely life, especially when it came to family. 2 days later, Mom called. Claire, honey, we need to talk about what happened at the baby shower. What about it? Natalie feels terrible about how things went. She never meant to hurt you, but she did mean to exclude me. She was overwhelmed with planning and stressed about everything being perfect. She made a mistake. It was not a mistake, Mom. It was a choice. She told me she did not want me there because I make her friends uncomfortable. She was upset. She said things she did not mean. Which things did she not mean? That I am exhausting? That I am aggressively myself? That I make people think too hard at parties? Mom was quiet for a moment. Claire, you know you can be intense sometimes. Intense. You care very deeply about things, and that can be overwhelming for people who just want to have a good time. So Natalie was right. I am too much. You are not too much. You are just different from the rest of us. Different how? You think about things more. You have opinions about everything. You notice things that other people do not notice. And that is bad? It is not bad, but it can make other people feel like they are not thinking deeply enough, or caring enough, or living consciously enough. I have never told anyone they were not thinking deeply enough. You do not have to tell them. They can see it in your face when they talk about things you think are trivial. What things? Shopping, decorating, celebrity gossip, reality TV, the things that most people use to relax and have fun. I do not judge people for liking those things. You do not judge them out loud. But Claire, You get this look on your face like you are tolerating the conversation until you can change the subject to something more meaningful. I do not mean to do that. I know you do not mean to, but it happens anyway. So what am I supposed to do? Pretend to care about things I do not care about? You are supposed to remember that other people's ways of finding joy are just as valid as yours, even if they seem shallow to you. I do remember that. Do you? Because Natalie says you always find a way to steer conversations toward serious topics. Art, education, social issues, whatever you are passionate about at the moment. I like having meaningful conversations, and other people like having light conversations. But you make them feel like light conversations are somehow lesser. How? By asking questions that turn small talk into big talk. By bringing up historical context or social implications or deeper meanings when people are just trying to chat. I thought that was being engaged. It is being engaged in the way you want to be engaged. But not everyone wants every conversation to be a learning experience. I felt like I was getting a crash course in how my personality affected other people, and it was not a flattering picture. According to my family, I was intense, judgmental, exhausting, and incapable of enjoying anything unless it met my standards for depth and meaning. Mom, am I really that difficult to be around? You are not difficult, honey. You are just particular. You have strong preferences and high standards, and you assume everyone else shares them. I do not assume that. You act like you assume that. When people talk about things you are not interested in, you look bored. When they make choices you would not make, you ask probing questions. When they enjoy things you think are superficial, you try to redirect the conversation. I am trying to connect with people. You are trying to connect with people on your terms. But connection requires meeting people where they are, not trying to bring them to where you are. So I need to be someone else. You need to be yourself, but with more awareness of how yourself affects other people. And if I cannot do that, then you need to accept that some relationships will be difficult for you, including my relationship with Natalie. Including your relationship with Natalie. That weekend, I did something I had never done before. I went to a party where I knew I would not have anything in common with anyone there. My colleague Jessica was having a housewarming party in the suburbs, and she had invited all the teachers from our school. I decided to use it as an experiment. Could I spend an evening making small talk about decorating and home improvement without steering the conversation toward anything more substantial? Could I be present and engaged without being intense or judgmental? The party was exactly what I expected. Teachers discussing their summer vacation plans, comparing notes on where they had bought furniture, sharing stories about their children and pets, the kind of conversation I usually found mind-numbing. But this time, instead of looking for ways to make it more interesting, I tried to find ways to be genuinely interested in what people were saying. I asked follow-up questions about their vacations, complimented their decorating choices, laughed at their funny stories about their kids. It was not intellectually stimulating, but it was pleasant. People seemed relaxed around me in a way they usually did not. They asked me questions about my art and my students, and when I answered, I focused on the parts of my work that they could relate to, rather than the parts that challenged existing systems or raised difficult questions. By the end of the evening, I had had several genuinely enjoyable conversations, and felt more connected to my colleagues than I had in years, but I also felt exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with staying up late. I felt like I had been performing a version of myself rather than being myself. When I got home, I called Maria again. How was the party? Educational. I think I understand now what Natalie was talking about. What do you mean? I mean, I spent the evening being the version of myself that other people are comfortable with, and it was completely draining. Because you were not being authentic? Because being authentic apparently means making other people uncomfortable. Or because you have been defining authenticity as saying whatever you think without considering how it affects other people. Is that what I do? Sometimes yes. Claire, authenticity does not mean having no filter. It means being true to your values while also being considerate of other people. But if I have to constantly monitor how I am affecting other people, how is that being myself? It is being your best self. The self that can connect with people instead of alienating them. And if my best self is not good enough for my family, then you find family with people who appreciate your authentic self. But what if there is something wrong with my authentic self? There is nothing wrong with your authentic self, but there might be something wrong with how you express your authentic self. What is the difference? The difference is intention. Do you ask questions because you are genuinely curious, or because you want to prove a point? Do you bring up serious topics because you care about them, or because you think small talk is beneath you? I do not think small talk is beneath me. Are you sure? Because you act like you think it is. How? You get this look on your face when people talk about reality TV or shopping or celebrity gossip, like you are waiting for them to say something worth responding to. I do not mean to do that. I know you do not mean to, but intention and impact are not the same thing. So what am I supposed to do? You are supposed to decide what kind of person you want to be. Do you want to be right, or do you want to be connected? Can I not be both? Not if being right requires making other people feel wrong. The conversation stayed with me for days. I started paying attention to my interactions with people, noticing when I felt the urge to challenge something they said, or redirect the conversation towards something I found more interesting. I realized that Maria and my mother, and even Natalie, were right. I did have a tendency to treat conversations like opportunities to educate or enlighten people. I did assume that deeper was always better, that meaningful was always preferable to fun. But I also realized that this was not malicious. I genuinely believed that people would be happier if they thought more deeply about their choices and engaged more seriously with the world around them. I was not trying to make anyone feel bad. I was trying to help them live more intentionally. The problem was that not everyone wanted to live more intentionally. Some people wanted to live lightly, to enjoy simple pleasures without analyzing them, to make choices based on what felt good rather than what felt meaningful. And there was nothing wrong with that. 3 weeks after the baby shower, Natalie called me. "Claire, I want to apologize for how I handled things at the shower." "You do not need to apologize. You were honest about how you feel." "I was cruel about how I feel." "There is a difference." "Were you wrong, though?" "About what?" "About me being exhausting. About me making your friends uncomfortable. About me not fitting in with your life." Natalie was quiet for a long time. "No, I was not wrong about those things. But I was wrong to make you feel like those things make you a bad person. Do they make me a bad sister? They make you a sister who loves differently than I need to be loved. What do you need? I need you to be excited about my choices without questioning them. I need you to celebrate my life without trying to improve it. I need you to enjoy my friends without trying to change the conversation. And if I cannot do those things, then we need to find a different way to have a relationship." What would that look like? I do not know. Maybe we see each other less often but more intentionally. Maybe we talk on the phone instead of getting together in groups. Maybe we find ways to connect that do not involve you having to pretend to be someone you are not. And what about Emma? What about her? Do I get to be her aunt? You get to be her aunt. But not the way you probably imagined. What do you mean? I mean you do not get to be the cool aunt who takes her to art museums and teaches her to question everything. You get to be the aunt who respects her parents' values and supports their choices, even when you disagree with them. And if I cannot do that, then you get to be the aunt who loves her from a distance. That sounds lonely. It might be. But Claire, trying to force yourself into spaces where you do not fit is lonely too. She was right. I had spent years feeling isolated at family gatherings, pretending to enjoy conversations that bored me, trying to be enthusiastic about things that felt meaningless to me. "I want to try," I said, "to be the kind of sister and aunt you need me to be." "Are you sure? Because it would mean changing some fundamental things about how you interact with people." "Like what?" "Like assuming that your way of seeing the world is the only valid way. Like treating every conversation as an opportunity to educate someone. Like acting like depth and meaning are always more important than fun and lightness. Those are pretty fundamental things. They are. And if you cannot change them authentically, if you can only change them by performing a different version of yourself, then it is not worth it for either of us. How do I know if I can change them authentically? You practice. You try having conversations where your goal is to make other people feel good, instead of to make yourself feel intellectually engaged. And if I fail, then you fail. But at least you will know that you tried. Natalie, can I ask you something? Sure. Do you think I am a bad person? No, Claire. I think you are a good person who has never learned how to connect with people who are different from you. And you think I can learn? I think you can learn if you want to. But it would require you to value connection more than being right. I do value connection. You value connection with people who think like you do. But most people do not think like you do. So I need to learn to connect with people who think differently. You need to learn to value people who think differently. I do value them. You value their right to think differently, but you do not value the thoughts themselves. She was right. I had always prided myself on being tolerant and open-minded, but tolerance was not the same as appreciation. I tolerated other people's interests and values and choices, but I did not appreciate them. How do I learn to appreciate things I do not understand? You try to understand why they bring other people joy, instead of trying to understand why they should not. That sounds hard. It is hard. But Claire, everything worthwhile is hard. 6 months later, Emma was born. I met her for the first time when she was 3 weeks old, in Natalie's living room with just our immediate family present. I brought a practical gift, a set of organic cotton onesies from the registry. I held my niece and marveled at her tiny fingers and perfect ears, and I did not say anything about the disposable diapers or the formula or the plastic toys that filled her nursery. I told Natalie she was beautiful and asked how she was feeling and complimented the nursery decor without mentioning my thoughts about consumer culture or materialism. It was not easy, but it was not as hard as I had expected either. Over the following months, I practiced being the kind of aunt and sister Natalie needed me to be. I sent congratulatory texts without asking follow-up questions. I brought gifts from the registry instead of finding unique alternatives. I made small talk about Emma's sleep schedule and eating habits without trying to steer the conversation toward child development research or educational philosophy. Slowly, Natalie started inviting me to family gatherings again. Small ones, usually, where I could focus on connecting with 1 or 2 people instead of trying to engage with a large group. I learned to appreciate things I had previously dismissed. I discovered that there was actually something peaceful about discussing the weather or sharing funny stories about pets. I found that people were more willing to talk about meaningful things when they trusted that I could also talk about meaningless things. Most importantly, I learned that being authentic did not require me to express every thought I had or share every opinion I held. It required me to be genuinely present with people as they were, not as I thought they should be. A year after the baby shower incident, Natalie threw Emma's first birthday party. This time, I was invited. This time, I knew I was invited because Natalie called me personally to ask if I could come. The party was exactly what I expected. Elaborate decorations, catered food, a professional photographer, and a group of suburban moms discussing sleep training and preschool options. But this time, instead of feeling out of place, I found ways to contribute to the conversations. I asked genuine questions about their experiences. I shared funny stories about my students. I complimented the other children's outfits and asked about their ages and interests. When someone mentioned that their daughter was struggling in art class, instead of launching into a lecture about the importance of creative education, I offered to send home some simple projects she might enjoy. When another mom talked about feeling guilty for working outside the home, instead of questioning why she felt guilty, I listened and offered encouragement. At one point, Natalie pulled me aside. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For trying. For being here the way I needed you to be here. It is getting easier." "Good. Because I want Emma to know her aunt. The real you, not the you that you think I want you to be." "Well, what is the difference? The real you is someone who cares deeply about people and wants them to be happy. The you that you think I want you to be is someone who pretends to care about things she does not care about. I am still figuring out how to be the real me in a way that does not make other people uncomfortable. That is what growing up is, Claire. Learning how to be yourself in a way that allows other people to be themselves too. I wish someone had taught me that earlier. I wish I had been patient enough to help you learn it instead of just getting frustrated with you for not knowing it. We both could have done better. Yeah, we could have. 2 years later, Emma took her first steps at a family barbecue in our parents' backyard. She toddled from Natalie's arms to mine, and everyone cheered and took pictures and celebrated this milestone in her young life. As I held my niece and watched my family fuss over her achievement, I realized that I had found my place among them, not by changing who I fundamentally was, but by learning how to be who I was in a way that made room for other people to be who they were. I was still the family member who cared deeply about education and social justice and meaningful conversation. But I was also the family member who could appreciate a perfectly decorated birthday party and laugh at toddler antics and celebrate small moments without needing them to be profound. I was still an artist and a teacher, and someone who thought carefully about the world, but I was also someone who could enjoy my sister's company without trying to change her, who could love my niece without trying to shape her into a miniature version of myself. The baby quilt still sat in my closet, a reminder of how much I had misunderstood about love and family and belonging. But sometimes, when I was babysitting Emma, I would take it out, and we would use it for story time or fort building or just snuggling on the couch. It was not the meaningful heirloom I had intended it to be, but it was something better. A symbol of how love could be complicated and imperfect, and still worth fighting for. Natalie had been right about many things. I had been exhausting and judgmental and aggressively myself in ways that made other people uncomfortable. But she had been wrong about one thing. I did fit into her life, and into our family. I just had to learn how to fit without taking up all the space. Being yourself, I learned, was not about expressing every thought or opinion or preference you had. It was about being true to your values while making room for other people to be true to theirs. It was about loving people the way they needed to be loved, not the way you needed to love them. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, they would learn to love you the way you needed to be loved too. 3 years after the baby shower that changed everything, I threw a party of my own. An art show opening featuring paintings I had created during Emma's first years of life. Portraits of families at play, celebrations, quiet moments of connection. Natalie came to the opening with Marcus and Emma, who was now old enough to point at the paintings and say, "Mama," when she recognized her mother's face in my work. "These are beautiful, Claire," Natalie said, standing in front of a painting of Emma's first birthday party. "You really captured something special. Thank you. I love that you painted the real moments, not just the posed ones. The real moments are usually more interesting. They are." "And Claire? Yeah? I am sorry it took me so long to see that your way of looking at the world is a gift, not a problem. I am sorry it took me so long to learn how to share that gift without overwhelming people with it. We both had some growing up to do." "Yeah, we did." Emma tugged on my dress, wanting to be picked up so she could see the paintings better. As I lifted her, she pointed at a painting of herself and clapped her hands in delight. "That is you, baby girl," I told her. "That is you being perfect just the way you are." And as I held my niece and watched my sister examine my paintings and saw my parents talking to my friends about my work, I realized that this was what belonging felt like. Not the absence of difference, but the celebration of it. Not the smoothing over of rough edges, but the appreciation of the texture they created. I was still the family member who thought too much and felt too deeply and cared too much about things that other people found trivial. But I was also the family member who could capture their joy in paint, who could see the beauty in their ordinary moments, who could love them exactly as they were while still being exactly who I was. And that, it turned out, was enough.